It's off exit 10, presented by Capital District Sport and Fitness.
When you walked in, I was like, it's not the guy from Hot Ones.
Why is that the guy's name from Hot Ones?
Pretty sure his name's Shaun Evans. Yeah.
Yes. Is that the British actor? Is that who you're talking about?
No,
I don't even...
the YouTube. He's got like it started off on YouTube, but now it's on other stuff. Probably it's like the hot wing thing where he does like all the hot wing.
Okay.
It's with celebrities, right? They interview
Yeah.
them while they're eating
hot wings
or
and
hot peppers.
It literally goes like each wing gets hotter and hotter and hotter, and like not everybody makes it through, and like.
And Shaun Evans is the host?
Yeah. I was like, yo, imagine if it's the same guy. I'm like, Jordy, we're definitely putting this video up.
Jordy would be the one to take the challenge.
Oh, sorry to disappoint.
Dude, not after that
No,
chip.
you didn't disappoint. You haven't disappointed.
Not yet, anyway.
Jordy did the, you heard of the one chip challenge before?
Oh, yeah.
Jordy did it in here. That had to be a couple of years ago.
Yeah, it was like probably the year of or before the pandemic. And it would like within 5 minutes, a crippling stomach ache.
Dude, we all were going to do it, and I think I took the baby's bite.
I was never going to do it. Never.
But if you say you are, then the other guys will.
Yeah, 100%.
And then I was like, F this. And then Jordy put the whole thing down like pretty quick.
Yeah, like it was nothing.
And then you were okay for a minute,
Yeah, it was something.
and then you were in the bathroom for a while.
That's how it went.
Didn't some kid in Connecticut or something die?
I think Massachusetts.
Or, yeah.
I saw an article that said that. I don't know if that was like the direct cause or if he had underlying conditions.
Or
but
he did too many.
Or he ate
Yeah.
like 7 of them and was like, oh, I can do this.
One more story on that is that I was dating a girl who was, her parents were involved in the church. And one year, somebody donated like a dozen of them to the church for like kids in need.
What is the thought process on
I
that?
think it was cruelty. I think they were being mean.
It's either that or they are completely oblivious to what the one chip challenge is.
They're like, I'm not putting money in the basket, but here's 7 hot chips.
They're going to burn your mouth off.
Oh, that's wild. But Shaun, appreciate you coming on today. I think we said Immel hooked us up.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
Yeah, Immel said, Immel was he was our first guest on the podcast.
Oh, cool.
A
Yes,
couple
he
years
was.
ago.
For
and
dodgeball related or...
dodgeball, teaching, coaching related talk. And then he, one of his lacrosse friends, who's a coach and came on, and Immel kind of sat in the background. And so we said Shaun would be a good guest. I think he hooked us up via text, and here we are. Have you always been a runner and always done endurance events?
Not really. I mean, as a kid, I guess I ran. And I was an athlete. I played soccer right on through college, and then I played basketball, and I did run track, but I was a sprinter. I mean, 400-meter hurdles was my specialty. And then my senior year of high school, my coach got the idea to put me in the steeplechase because I could hurdle. And for those of you that aren't familiar with a steeplechase, it's basically 2 miles with hurdles in a water pit. But I had some success. I won sectionals, both 400 hurdles and steeplechase my senior year. Kind of took a break from running, went and played college soccer, and then once I graduated from college, I wanted something to stay active, and that's when I took up distance running.
I feel like, a lot of people, once they play their college sport and they finish it, like we're all athletes and you need that competitive outlet still. Like mine went to the other extreme and went to powerlifting.
Sure, yeah.
Because that's what a lot of strength coaches did and the people that I was around. But that's unlike endurance events, where I feel like endurance events is something that you can continue for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, that's the great thing about running is it really is a lifelong sport, and it is something that, keeps you fit and active. That's what I was looking for. I guess at the time, it's definitely evolved, with my family and my sons and stuff since then. But that was the thought process initially.
It's like powerlifting was great, and some people do it for a while, but it takes such a toll on your body. It's like one little back injury, and then I tore my pec, and it's like this is not worth it anymore to feel like this every day.
Yeah, wear and tear. Yep.
Yeah, a lot of that. So what have you competed in? You've done marathons, you've done ultras.
Yeah. So 2001, I ran my first marathon. I was actually a graduate student at the time. I trained for the Philadelphia Marathon. My goal for that race was to qualify for the Boston Marathon, and to do that at the time, I think I had to run 3 hours and 10 minutes. I had no idea what I was doing pacing wise. I went out and I ran the first 10 miles. I look around and I'm surrounded by like Kenyan guys, and I'm thinking, oh man,
I'm doing great.
This is easy. And I was at about 50 minutes through 10 miles, so just about 5-minute pace. And I had trained for it, but I had no idea what was to come. And by mile 18, my total like lower body was just one big cramp, and I hobbled the last 6 or 8 miles. Finished in 3 hours and 14 minutes, so I came up just short. But I learned a lot, and then about 6 months later, I ran another marathon, the Buffalo Marathon, and I qualified for Boston easily, and realized I had a propensity for distance running. So that was my competitive. Yeah, that's when I really started competing. And once I qualified for Boston, I set my goals a little bit higher and wanted to try and hit the Olympic qualifying standard, which at the time was 2 hours and 22 minutes. By 2009, I had gotten my time down to 2 hours and 26 minutes.
It's impressive.
Yeah, it's about 5.5 minutes per mile for 26 miles. So, with training though, it's amazing what your body can accomplish. That's what I say about long distance running is it's really just about putting in the time and the miles.
Yeah, it's unlike powerlifting or real explosive sports where it's not easier. You have to put in a lot of work and a lot of hours to make those adaptations for your body, but it's much more achievable for a lot of people to make these like aerobic adaptations.
Completely agree. Yeah, and I had a couple buddies. You say, what way do you go after you finish college? And I had 2 soccer playing friends that went the powerlifting route, and they compared themselves to me a lot and said we put in about the same amount of time, the same amount of hours, but it's just totally different work.
I feel like when it comes to like that, your max strength, your power output, you're just more limited by what your genetics are and what you're capable of. You're going to hit your ceiling most people are going to hit that way sooner.
Right.
Where these aerobic adaptations, you can still make them. We can still make them late into life.
Yeah, and you see guys in their 40s that are still super competitive at, ultra marathon kind of stuff or even older.
Right. And you work as a physical therapist still?
Yeah, I do. I got my physical therapy degree in 2002, so I've been a PT for just over 20 years. I had a couple different career paths with that. That's a great thing about physical therapy is there's a lot of different options. So right now I'm doing a couple days a week in an outpatient clinic working with, sports rehab and people after they've had surgery and things like that. And then I do a couple days a week of early intervention. So I work with babies, birth to 3, and helping them with developmental disabilities and stuff. So it's really varied, but it's fun, and with my experience with my own son who has a disability, I feel like I have a lot to offer in both venues. Yeah,
when Emil first told me about you, he said Shaun in 2015. Is that correct?
Yeah.
He went from Seattle to New York, pushing your son in an adaptive chair.
Right.
How did that come about?
Yeah. So my son Shamus was born with cerebral palsy. He was born in 2006, so he's just about to turn 18 after the first of the year.
Is he a senior in high school now?
He is a senior in high school, looking at college.
Is that wild to you?
Oh my gosh, it's terrifying and exciting, and it's tough because he's got a younger brother that's just a year behind him. So we're on the verge of being empty nesters.
Everybody says our daughter's 10 months old. I'm on the other end.
Yeah.
Every parent says in here, like, dude, it goes by quick. I'm just like, yeah, okay. But it goes by quick.
It does go by, and it goes by too fast. And I miss those days, when they were little guys, and we had 2 close together. They're just 20 months apart, and I miss the little stage,
Yeah, man. So how did the whole going across the country come to fruition?
Yeah, so any father wants to share their passion with their son, and at the time I was deep into running when Shamus was born. So whether he was limited physically or not, I wanted to share running with him. So as soon as he could sit in a jogging stroller, I would take him out on a 20-mile run every Saturday, and we would just hang out. And of course, when he was small, he slept most of the time. He would just doze off, and he'd wake up as I was huffing and puffing up a big hill or something like that. But from a small age, he liked to go fast. He liked to explore. We would go explore the area and look for babbling brooks and waterfalls and whatever. It was fun. It was a bonding experience for the 2 of us. And as he got older, it evolved a little bit into having conversations and talking about what was going on at school. And when he was 6 years old, 6 to 7, I ended up having to take a break from running for a while. I had to have some surgeries on my hips, just some labral repairs. Nothing too serious, but it kept me out of running for a while. And when I went to put him back in his jogging chair, I just couldn't squeeze him in it anymore. And we ended up getting a larger chair. Once we got that chair, Shamus wanted to start running races together. And that's what we did. And he was hooked from the beginning. We ran our first race here in Saratoga, the Firecracker 4-miler, which happens every 4th of July. And he had a blast. And he was hooked. And he asked if he could run my next race with me. And my next race happened to be an ultra marathon. And it was my very first ultra marathon.
How many miles is an ultra?
So technically anything longer than 26 miles.
Is considered an ultra.
But this race was a 6-hour timed event. So you run as far as you can in 6 hours.
Jeez.
And
That's a long time.
so some people weren't going to run a marathon that day.
This guy right here, not running a marathon in 6 hours.
What's the farthest somebody goes in that?
Well, I'll
Tell
tell you.
tell us.
The race was put on by one of my high school friends, and I asked if it would be okay if we had if Shamus rolled in it, because some of these races don't want strollers or running chairs or whatever. But his race took place on a 0.355 mile loop. So, just a little bit longer than a high school track, a cinder track around a park in Pittsfield, Massachusetts. And he granted us permission. He granted me permission to push Shamus. And we went out and ran it together. And I figured, as I was getting ready to run it, that Shamus was going to get bored after a few laps. He was 7 years old. He's not going to want to run. And it was in August. He's not going to want to sit in the sun and run in circles all day. But I would check in with him periodically and ask if he wanted to take a break or whatever. And I could tell he was getting irritated with me. So I stopped asking. And 4.5 hours later, my wife stepped in and said, Shamus, you got to take a break because we need to feed you. You need to use the bathroom. We got to stretch your legs. And he relented. He said, okay, Dad, I'll take a break, but you got to keep running. And at that point, I wanted this was my first ultra marathon. I just wanted to lay down in the shade somewhere.
And he says that as a 6-7-year-old.
Right.
That's awesome.
So I stuck with it. He hopped back in about 20 minutes later. And after 6 hours, we had run over 45 miles, and we ran further than anybody else that day. So as a duo, me pushing Shamus, we ended up winning the sweltering summer 6-hour ultra marathon that day. And that was you asked how the run across America came about. That was the genesis, because when we got back in the car, and I'm busy patting myself on the back because we just won an ultra marathon, my first ultra marathon. Shamus was in the back seat brainstorming, and he goes, Dad, that was really fun. How far could we make it if we ran that far every single day for my summer vacation? Because he loved it, he was just in his element. He can't make his body move that way. I have the honor and the privilege to be his legs,
Right. How much did you and your wife have to learn about cerebral palsy and his developmental, delays and issues when he was diagnosed?
Yeah, I mean, my wife is a special education teacher, or was at the time, and I was a PT specializing. At the time, I was specializing in pediatric physical therapy, so I was working with kids with neurological differences all the time. So as far as learning, it was basically learning to be a parent of a child with a disability. As far as about the diagnosis, we both had pretty good backgrounds, and I think that helped us with the coping process, or the understanding process initially. It wasn't as jarring, and instead of, oh, woe is us, for having a child with a disability, we immediately flipped the switch to what can we do to make his childhood as exciting and normal as possible. And we knew we might have to adapt and accommodate and overcome some obstacles, but that was our mindset from the start, and that's persisted, and that's where Shamus, thrived, really.
It seems like, he's a super optimistic dude.
Yeah. So again, he posed the idea, how far could we go if we ran every day that far? And we helped him with the math. As a 7-year-old, we helped him with the calculations. Said, 45 miles a day for 70 days of your summer vacation, we could run 3,000 miles.
Paul, you'd have to help me with those calculations.
I'm gonna let Shaun take the reins on this one.
Yeah, it's crazy now that Shamus is a senior in high school, and he's got aspirations of being an aerospace engineer. I can't help him with his math anymore.
You're like, you're gonna have to help me with that one, guy.
So we say 3,000 miles. He says, man, that's a long ways. How far is 3,000 miles? So when we got home from Pittsfield, Massachusetts that day, we pulled out a map of the United States and said, Shay, if we ran 3,000 miles, and again, we're just using this as an exercise in geography and math, we could run all the way from this ocean, and we pointed to the Pacific, to this ocean, and we pointed to the Atlantic. And at that moment, it was like a little light bulb went off in Shamus's head, and he said, "Man, we got to do that, Dad." And my wife and I were like, he's 7 years old. It's cool. It's
Right.
great for him to dream big.
He'll forget about it,
Yeah,
though,
he'll
and-
forget about it in a day or two. But for like 3 months, it was all he asked us about. And when I remember tucking him in just before Thanksgiving that year, that was 2013, I had tucked him in, and he looked up at me and he said, "Hey, Dad, when we run across America, can we donate running chairs to kids like me so they can feel what it's like to go fast?" And I remember walking out of his room with like a lump in my throat and saying to my wife, Nicole, I said, "I don't know, but I feel like we got to try and make this happen somehow," and I guess the rest is history.
Yeah, and then how much planning goes into it from there? What's your next step?
Yeah, like I said, that was 2013, November of 2013. So the following week, I went into my boss the following Monday after Thanksgiving holiday, and I said, "How would you feel about me taking the summer of 2015 off so that we can attempt this goal of Shamus's to run across America and donate chairs to kids with disabilities?" And knowing our family and knowing Shamus, my boss was gracious in granting me the summer of 2015 off from work, and then it was all hands on deck from there, trying to get things logistically planned. And it took every minute of that next 18 months to train, to fundraise, to plan all the logistics and put all the pieces together so that we could make a realistic attempt in 2015.
Is your route precisely planned out?
Yeah, I mean, that was part of it, trying to plan the route. I wanted to involve Shamus's younger brother, Simon, too. So I said, "Hey, Si," and he was, again, first grade at the time. "What in America would you want to see? If we were to run across the country, what do you want to see?" And I was glad when he said Mount Rushmore and not like the Grand Canyon or something, because it meant we would be taking the northern route. So Mount Rushmore became like a point on the course that we wanted to get to, and Shamus wanted to start with his toes in one ocean and end with his toes in the other. So we were looking for points on the coast where we could do that. So we found Golden Garden Park in Puget Sound in Seattle was where we started. And then of all places, we ended at a beach in the Bronx for our finishing point, where Shamus would walk the last few steps with his walker into the ocean. So yeah, it was, and then we did our best to fill in the blanks in between, trying to not run on highways and find roads that were conducive to me being able to push Shamus and that kind of thing. And again, a lot of Google Maps, Google Earth kind of searching to figure all that out.
Yeah, man, that's impressive. You know why Immel first connected us is he had on an Ainsley's Angels shirt, and I asked him about it.
Yeah.
And that's how we got it going. So did they help you with, why don't you talk about that organization?
Yeah, so I said, when Shamus outgrew his running chair when he was 6 or 7 years old, I didn't know where to get a chair for someone that was bigger, or up to an adult size, And I was directed from, a lot of people have heard of Team Hoyt, the father-son duo out of Boston, Massachusetts that have run thousands of races. They've done Ironmans. I think they ran 32 consecutive Boston marathons as a duo. I had seen them because I had run the Boston Marathon, so I knew of them. I knew that he pushed his adult son in this chair. So I reached out to them asking for help, and they said, "Yeah, we could build you a chair, but it's going to cost you like $7,000 or whatever. But we know this guy in Virginia. He goes by Rooster. He's got an organization called Ainsley's Angels. They can probably help get you in a chair for under $1,000. So I said, "Oh, that sounds doable." So I reached out to Rooster via email.
What a name.
Yeah. His name is Kim Rossiter. But
that's for the Rooster.
Yeah,
I'd go by Rooster too.
Exactly. And he's a big hulking man. He's a retired Marine, but he's just super generous and all about inclusion. His daughter Ainsley had a terminal diagnosis when she was about 3 years old, called infantile neuroaxonal dystrophy, that ended up claiming her life in 2016. But in the meanwhile, he set up this organization because he had taken her for a run along the boardwalk in Virginia Beach, where her face just lit up. She was beaming when he took her for a run, and he said, "Oh, this is something we can do together." So he started Ainsley's Angels while she was alive and able to thrive and enjoy it. And now we continue to live her legacy now. But he helped us to get our first chair. And, while I was busy telling people about what we were trying to attempt to do in 2015, most people would respond, Shaun, you're crazy. It's not safe. What are you thinking? It's not humanly possible to run 3,200 miles in 60 days. I had posted something on Facebook back in 2013, and Rooster said, wait a minute, let me get this right. You're planning on using the chair that you got from us to push Shamus across America? And while the next phrase would be, Shaun, you're crazy, Rooster's next line was, what can we do to help? We want in. And really, that's where the relationship was born. So Ainsley's Angels ended up purchasing an RV for a sight unseen on the West Coast that we would use as our headquarters, our mobile headquarters for our family as we ran 3,200 miles across America. They ended up helping us secure all the chairs that we would be donating along the way. So Ainsley's Angels is all about promoting inclusion, and it just fit our family mission equally well. So now it's a huge part of our lives.
That's awesome. And now the organization, they work to provide chairs or help in different ways? Yeah,
I mean, chairs is one way. Inclusion without limits is Ainsley's Angels' mission, or motto or vision. And they do that through education, talking about promoting disability awareness, promoting inclusion. They do it through advocacy. We have ambassadorships across America in about 70 different cities and 35 different states, some of which were born out of our run across America, which was really cool to see. So we have those ambassadors that promote inclusion at the local level. And then we do it through movement. And one of those movement options is running in races together or participating in triathlons, but also things like bowling events or right. Golf or whatever, where inclusion is the goal.
What are the biggest hurdles that you see in like local communities or schools that prevent inclusion or make it difficult for kids who want to do things to be able to participate?
Yeah, I mean, one of it is just lack of awareness or knowledge. People see Shamus in his wheelchair and sometimes just they'll assume that he's got, learning disabilities or cognitive disabilities in addition to his physical impairments. But that's not the case for Shamus. Like I said, I mean, he's pursuing a career potentially in aerospace engineering, right. Which is, he's a bright kid. He just happens to use a wheelchair to get around. So one of it is just overcoming some of that stigma and stereotype. And then, of course, for Shamus, we run into, physical obstacles a lot of times, places that aren't completely handicap accessible. And then getting people that are willing to maybe be a little bit patient or learn those things so that they can accommodate and adapt so that people can be included and involved is really what we're out there to educate about.
Right. At any point during the run, did you feel like across the country, like we may not be able to do this? Or
there were days, and I talk about it in the book that I wrote. Day 6, we had just finished running across the state of Washington, so we made it across the state of Washington in our first week, and on day 6 we crossed over into Idaho. And once we got to Idaho, man, it seemed like everything went wrong. We had a chair presentation that morning, which was great, but it put us behind schedule. So we started the day late. One of my friends from high school was kind of meeting us that day and wanted to run with us. And I told him what kind of pace we'd be running, but he wasn't prepared to run that kind of pace. And so that backed us up even further. We had media obligations where we would be meeting with some news outlets and newspapers and stuff later that day. So I just felt like pressure all day. And Shamus and I were running behind. We get to the RV, and Nicole is there with like a bunch of reporters and stuff in the RV, and one of them had happened to bump into the stove and turned the propane on, and the propane was kind of leaking throughout the RV. So she was feeling awful, like migraine, Jeez. Dizzy, nauseous kind of stuff. So she had opened the vents in the RV and kind of got that situation figured out. And then Shamus needed a break because he had been with me a long time that morning. So Simon, his younger brother, was going to hop in the chair for a little while with me while we ran. And the cool thing about the run in Idaho was it was primarily on a bike trail. We hardly ever had to step foot on a road. They have a bike trail called the Centennial Trail, and it runs basically across the bottleneck of northern Idaho. So Simon got in the chair, and that was the one time that I forgot my cell phone, and because I was thinking, okay, it was supposed to be 4 miles till we could meet up with the RV. I had forgot my cell phone. I said, we're not going back for it. We're on a bike trail. I can't get lost. Lo and behold, we took a wrong turn down a different bike trail. We got lost. So it was one thing after the other. We ended up running 12 extra miles to find the RV. Nicole was worried, sick about us because we weren't, she's like, 4 miles, they'll be here in 30 minutes or less. Well, an hour and a half later or whatever, we finally get there. Panic. And so then we go to the campground that we were supposed to be in that night, and we pull in, and it was odd because there were no other RVs or anything there, and it was closed. Not just for the night, it was permanently closed. And we had been really diligent about making our reservations and everything like that. So we had to go find somewhere else to stay. Luckily, we did that. We finally get settled in kind of for the night, and Shamus says he's hungry, so Simon wants to pitch in and make him a sandwich. And as he does, he's slicing some cheese, and he cuts his thumb with a really sharp knife, and he's bleeding all over the place. And he doesn't deal well with the blood. He starts throwing up, and then he passes out. This is all one day on our 6th day of the run across America. So you asked if there was ever a time when I thought, man, we aren't going to make it. It was that day, but it goes on further. I mean, there was somebody throwing a barbecue for us that night. We went there, had a good time. But as we're leaving, Nicole's pulling out of the parking spot. She was driving the RV all the time, and we hear this big crash. And I had mentioned that she had left the vents open to air out the RV. It had shattered on a low-hanging branch, so that the vent caps were destroyed. We get to the RV, and it starts raining later that night, so it's pouring in the RV.
Wow,
So that was the day. But we get back to the campground and kind of settle in as a family for the night, and we're sitting around the table just talking about the day, and I'm lamenting about everything that had gone awry. And I'm thinking to myself, I didn't say this to the family, but what did I get us into? What did I sign us up for? But immediately, Shamus starts talking about all the positive things that happened that day. It's stuff that I had hardly even remembered. And he said, Dad, we started in a new state. We crossed the state line today. And he goes, you got to run with a high school buddy that you haven't seen in 25 years. And he goes, we donated a chair. And, we got all these media interviews. And, we got to go to a water park because after the barbecue that night, we had gone to a water park. And all he was focused on was the positive stuff. And that shifted my mentality for the rest of the summer. Shamus could recognize everything positive that had happened, and all I was thinking about was the negative. And honestly, that became our mantra for the rest of the summer: focus on the positive. And there was always something to focus on, and that led us the rest of the way.
Yeah, that's the difference between kids and adults, though.
You got it.
We'll sit here and just be like, F this sucks, this isn't. Yeah, the kids are way more optimistic.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, I mean, without Shamus, we never would have set foot on that mission because I would have never dreamed of something like that. That was never on my bucket list to run across America. You know what I mean? I didn't think it was humanly possible for me to be able to push him that far. We were running 56 miles a day on average in the summer heat.
What time are you waking up to start?
And again, I didn't want to disrupt the family routine, so It's not like we were starting at 4 a.m. We were starting at 7 or 8 by the time everybody gets up and situated, and then we were running 8 to 10 to 12 hours a day, depending on the day and the terrain and how we were all
How's your
feeling.
body hold up during all that?
I mean, luckily I had trained for it the best I could without ever, having done 56 miles a day for 30 days even,
Right.
let alone 60. But I had trained, I mean, I knew we were in for a long haul. So I had trained as much as I possibly could, and I was working full time as a therapist at the time. So what I would do as somebody that was training was I would get up at 3:30 in the morning and run 13 miles, 14 miles on the treadmill all winter long as we were getting ready for this. And then I would take 10 and run 10 miles on my lunch break, and then I'd get home and I'd run 13 or 14 miles on the treadmill, and that was how I tried to get ready for it, and I did that as often as I could. And then right before we took off on the adventure, Memorial Day weekend, I had a span of 5 days off from work, so I put myself to the test to see if I could run 50 miles for 5 consecutive days. And I was able to successfully do that. And that was the first time I thought, wow, we might actually have a shot at this. And so my body did. It held up. I was. It's amazing. You kind of acclimating on the run. And,
Right.
It's amazing what the human body can do with the right inspiration.
The supplement industry is like the Wild West. The lack of regulations mean the supplements you purchase may not even contain the ingredients listed on the label, which is why I get my daily vitamins and supplements from Thorne. Thorne vitamins and supplements are made without compromise. Quality ingredients ensure your body optimally absorbs and digests your daily supplements, while in-house and third-party testing ensure you're getting exactly what you paid for. Thorne offers a variety of health tests reviewed by board-certified physicians that evaluate your lifestyle, gut health, sleep, stress hormones, and metabolic markers to determine which vitamins and supplements may be most effective in helping you feel and perform better throughout the day. For college and professional athletes, Thorne has NSF-certified supplements that make sure you won't get pop positive on a drug test. Whether you're an athlete, professional, parent, grandparent, or weekend warrior, Thorne's selection of high-quality supplements can help improve your quality of life. Switch to Thorne's high-quality and extensively tested supplements today at thorne.com/u/CDSF. That's thorne.com/u/CDSF. This episode of Off Exit 10 is brought to you by Anchor and the all-new Anchor Pro, crafted to endure the most high-performance workouts without the high cost and space requirements of a standard cable machine. Named the best portable cable machine by Men's Health Home Gym Awards, Anchor provides the full functionality of a cable machine in one small space-saving unit. Designed with user-friendliness in mind, Anchor can simply be attached to any squat rack or placed on any wall in your home gym using its intuitive sliding track mount. With up to 65 pounds of resistance, Anchor is built for high speed and controlled exercises alike, from cable presses and rows to chops and lifts. The Anchor has been a game changer for us here at CDSF, and now you can enjoy the same professional quality cable machine in your own home gym by heading over to anchortraining.com and using code CDSF10 for 10% off your order today. Get all the benefits of a cable machine without the high cost and installation fees. Enjoy the portable luxury and space-saving performance of Anchor today by going to anchortraining.com and using code CDSF10 at checkout. That's anchortraining.com, promo code CDSF10 for 10% off your order today. Yeah, 100%. How do you fuel yourself during all that? Are you conscious of that?
Yeah, so I had worked with a nutritionist going into the summer. She actually used me as her graduate school case study.
Yeah, well, there's an N=1
right
there.
Right. Yeah. And she knew, I'd be pushing, 100 and 150 pounds. I'd be, moving my own body. We'd be running at altitude. We'd be running through the Rocky Mountains. And she recommended that I consume 12 to 15,000 calories a day. And I had recently become a vegetarian. I think in 2012, as I was recovering from my surgeries,
12 to 15,000
calories per day. And I was running 8 to 10 to 12 hours. So it doesn't leave much time for eating.
And did you hold true to being a vegetarian during that?
I did, yeah. I was actually a vegan when we started the run.
And then what did you plug back in, animal product-wise, to be able to...
Yeah, at the time, it wasn't much. My wife took care of all the nutrition, and she was trying to follow, the plan. So I was eating, a lot of quinoa and grains and pasta and stuff like that. And she would throw... Again, it was hard to make time to eat. So, for example, my day would start out with bagels and bananas and peanut butter and that kind of thing, just something fairly light.
We have high school males in here who need to gain weight for their sport, and they have a hard time sometimes eating 3,500 to 4,000 calories.
Exactly. 12 to 15,000.
Dude,
it took some training for that.
But listen, kids that hear this as a 14-year-old with no job, you can eat your 3,500 calories every day.
So that was my morning meal, and then daytime it's hard to eat while you run. So we were lucky we had a sponsor. Larabar was a sponsor.
Larabars are nice. They had a lot of flavors.
Yeah, that was good. And we had cases of them. So I would eat, those kind of as I ran or in my short breaks in between runs. But basically my nutrition, my calories came from these shakes that my wife would make.
That's probably the only way to not have yourself feel so full you can't eat anymore and get in that amount of calories.
And she would mix all kinds, she would put multiple avocados in there and coconut oil.
Yeah, that's the key things with a high fat content.
You got it. And that's how I was getting it. So that's how I was doing it. And then she'd mix, different protein powders and all kinds of stuff. That's how I did it. And then we'd finish the run for the day, and then I would basically eat until I fell asleep.
I still do that
that's-
watching
that's-
TV.
that's-
though,
that's
not
Mike.
running.
Luckily, I was burning a ton of calories. The hard thing, though, was when we stopped, it was hard to get away from. I had been doing it for over 2 months, trying to get ready for it, and then 2 months, and then all of a sudden, you're not running 56 miles a day, but my body was craving that nutrition all the
Yeah,
time.
how did that work? Did you gradually bring yourself down?
Yeah, I mean, I still struggle with overeating sometimes, just
Because of that, you
yeah,
feel like?
I think, yeah. I mean,
That sounds right. It's like my wife did a figure competition back in the day
Oh, yeah,
in her
yeah.
early 20s, and that messed her up still to this day on the other end, where she underate for a long period of
Right.
time to reach a goal, and it's like probably hormonally and psychologically. Yeah, that's tough.
yeah, I could totally understand. I mean, eating disorders are a real thing. Addictions are hard, but you have to have food. You
Mm-hmm.
have to have food, and that's what makes eating so difficult.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm thinking you see it more in endurance sports or in female endurance sports.
Right? No doubt.
Yeah.
That's a big issue. Always been a big issue and still is under eating and eating disorders. And it's like, yeah, a girl will see one girl on their team who's good but has an eating disorder, and they go, well, if she's doing it and she's good, then
Yeah.
I'm going to do it and I'll be good.
Right.
Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, and really for me that summer I was just looking at food was fuel, and that's I was just trying to fuel my body enough. And there were days where I was getting sick on the side of the road just because I couldn't absorb all the nutrients that I was trying to intake.
Yeah, man, it's crazy. What was your favorite state? What was the coolest thing that you saw on that whole journey?
Yeah, people are surprised when we say what our favorite state was. As a family, it was unanimous when we finished the summer. We kind of, reflected back on what we had done and accomplished and talked about our favorite moments. And our favorite state was Iowa, of all places.
Shout out to Hawkeyes.
Yeah. Not a lot to see. I mean, there was a lot of cornfields and a lot of soybeans, and that was the running family joke was, soybeans on the left, corn on the right, and it was or alternating back and forth for miles and miles and miles every day. And this is, after coming out of the Rocky Mountains and the Badlands and some beautiful, beautiful terrain. But the greatest thing about Iowa was the people. They were just amazing.
People are nicer in the Midwest. That's a fact, right?
It seemed that way,
Yeah.
but it kind of restores your faith in humanity.
It
a little
does,
bit.
yeah. I mean, we're in the Northeast, man. People are tough.
People suck in the
People
Northeast.
can suck. You look at somebody the wrong way, they're just like, fuck off. The Midwest, like, hello, how's your day?
Yeah, and what can we do to help? Really, was what it came down
Right.
to. And as we were running through Iowa, we had linked up with a bunch of people, and one of them had set up a visit at Field of Dreams for us, which was our family's big baseball fans in general. And we were so excited to have that opportunity. And then we get there, and they had called back one of the extras from the movie that played a ghost player. And he walked out of the corn, and he has in his hands like a glove for each of the boys, and a
that's
Field
cool.
of Dreams jersey for each of the kids, and a couple movies and all kinds of stuff. Just goodies for the boys. And what a memory and what a moment. And then I got to play on the field with the we had Field of Dreams to ourselves.
This is why
sick.
it's your favorite.
Yeah,
state,
yeah,
favorite
exactly,
State, 'cause you got to be on the Field of Dreams that we've all wanted to be on.
Right.
That's
and this was before they built the stadium there and everything now that they have. So it was the old field just for the movie, and we
yeah,
had it
they-
to
Oh,
yeah,
ourselves.
that's right.
They
yeah.
play a game there.
They play a game
year,
there
right?
every year
Yeah,
now.
now they
yeah.
do. Yep.
Yep.
So the old
It's really
field,
cool.
The old field still exists. They just built a new one.
A separate one. Yeah.
Yeah.
That has to be cool to go to. I bet tickets are
The-
crazy expensive though.
I
for
can't even
limited
imagine.
seating.
The cool thing was I remember watching it the one year, like just like in the Field of Dreams, like they walk out from the cornfield.
Yeah. Yep. I remember seeing
Like
Aaron Judge.
all
do
the
that.
players walked out from the cornfield. It was like really cool.
That's sick.
So we did that, and that's one of the greatest pictures like ever. I have it hanging on my wall.
You
is
guys walking out of the
me pushing Shamus in his wheelchair, Simon in his Field of Dreams jersey, Nicole in her Ainsley's Angels shirt, and us all walking out of the corn with the ghost player.
That's awesome.
That was there. That actually was in the movie.
I also never want to hear anybody complain about pushing the sled because he pushed 150 pounds across the country. I don't want to ever hear it
Yeah,
again.
kids complain too much. Yeah, man. Field of Dreams. It's a great movie. That's a top sports movie.
yeah,
yeah.
and the kids had seen it. Actually, Field of Dreams was never even on our itinerary initially, but then the boys had watched the movie maybe like 6 months before we were set to embark on our journey. And so we rerouted our whole journey just to be able to pass by Field of Dreams. And then we had these people that set up this special visit just for us, it was incredible.
That's awesome.
That's sweet. So you're a big baseball family? Are you a baseball fan?
Yeah, I mean, yes, definitely. I was never big. I wasn't that great at hitting. I could run, I could field, I could throw, but I wasn't a great hitter. So I probably stopped playing when I was in 7th or 8th grade, and then took up running track, which I guess in the scheme of things worked out okay. And it's been interesting because my younger son Simon has gone through a similar transition, though he was a much better baseball player than I ever was. He had wanted to play both baseball and run track, and our school wouldn't let him. They made him choose, so he chose track. And again, he's had some success, but it's hard to see because he was a decent little pitcher. So yeah, we are a baseball family.
Hitting a baseball is the hardest thing to do.
I agree.
Like
Deion Sanders said it. He
That
played
it's
pro
not-
football and pro baseball. He said the hardest thing to do is hit a baseball.
I think it's the hardest thing in sports. Jay, do you agree?
Yeah, I mean, you could just go down the line of like take an unathletic person and have them kick a soccer ball, easy. Throw a football, you'll get it in 5 minutes. Hit a 70-mile-per-hour baseball, no shot.
No thanks.
50 miles per hour.
Right, sure. I mean, maybe returning a tennis serve, I'm sure that's equally hard.
Yeah, like a pro,
Like a
Yeah.
pro
fast
tennis
serve.
But if I'm just, I'm not saying they got to go up against a pro. They can go against a little leaguer.
Sure.
Like, they probably are going to have a hard time, especially against some of the kids that we get.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to hit off a tee for some people.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Really.
It's a lot. There's so much that goes into it. And then like the surface area that you hit the baseball with that connects with the bat is like so small and everything too. It's
I
crazy.
guess hockey could get some credit just because there's the baseline skating skill that not a lot of people have.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, likewise.
When I grew up playing hockey, pond hockey and that kind of stuff, so every sport we tried. And my father was a physical education teacher. He taught in Burnt Hills for 30 years. So he exposed us to everything. And he's a real big baseball guy, loved to coach baseball and
I wonder
that
if
kind
Maloney
of thing.
had his dad.
Maybe. Yeah, we have an employee here. I live in Burnt Hills now. One of our employees lives in Burnt Hills.
What year did he graduate?
09.
My father retired in 2000, so he might have missed him.
Yeah, probably missed him. How much different is youth sports now, like your view of it and what you see from when you grew up?
Oh man, I would say now, and maybe some of it's just
Well, your kids go to a smaller school,
public
right?
school. Yeah,
Yeah.
Galway is a small school. Some of it may be just different coaches, but I would say now the focus is more on fun. To me, I think
As a parent, you're saying.
yeah, or even in general, it seems like there's a little less emphasis on skill development, or at least at the young ages. I started playing soccer when I was 3 years old, and they were doing drills and
Yeah, no 3-year-old needs drills.
right. I think it's evolved that way in a good way. That their focus is fun, because how many kids are really going to take it to a level where it has to be so competitive at a young age? I think fun should be the emphasis when they're young. And skill, there should be a way to integrate skill. And I think that the coaches have come a long ways in that, in integrating the skill and making it fun. I would say that's probably how it's evolved the most since, 40 years ago when I was playing.
Yeah, the fun part's important. I think we see a lot of bigger schools in here.
Oh,
The
yeah,
Shen,
yeah.
the Toga. And then we see...
They focus on specialization.
Yeah, so we're involved. And I guess we're just jaded and biased because of the population that we see in here. And it's like, yeah, they get hyper competitive really young, and sometimes it robs the fun and it forces specialization at a young age. Which
Well,
is
that's interesting. Yeah. Because those
because
programs.
you have Galway, and there's still 14 to 18 spots on a baseball team for a school of 400 kids, 500 kids.
Right,
maybe.
where we can't even field the JV team most of the time
Right,
because and there's no cuts usually in Galway. It's very different. You're right.
And then
yeah.
you have a big school that has a class size of 800 kids, and they got 14 to 18 spots on their baseball team still. So it just like trickles down, we see, to this like hyper competitive just kind of state at a young age.
Yeah, so that's really interesting. I have a nephew that goes to Shen, and he loves basketball, and he's pretty good, but his chances of
But isn't that
excelling at Shen are going to be limited. Whereas if he is at Galway, he'd be, a starter maybe 3-4 years.
Yeah, it's sad. It's just like, I guess you have to know that's what you're going into as a parent.
Yeah.
When your kid's in a district like that, because we see it in here. We see a kid who's like, you would be a stud on a Class C team, a Stillwater, a Mechanicville, a Galway, and they'll get cut when they're a sophomore.
You can't make it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then that kid that could have been a stud at, Mechanicville, Galway, Chatham, any of the smaller schools that could have maybe played college sports, maybe doesn't now because they got cut as a sophomore, and they're like, well, what's the point?
Right. And we have a lot of kids, not a lot, but there's a handful of kids from Galway that'll go on and compete in college. It's small schools, they're not going D1, but
listen, only like 8% or 7% of high school athletes play college sports. Like, it doesn't matter what level.
Right, exactly.
I think the biggest trouble, one of the bigger difficulties with a bigger school, a more populated area with youth sports is that everything's in age groups from a young age. 10U, 11U, 12U, 13U. You have kids that are going to develop physically sooner than later. And now you have a kid who hits puberty sooner, is bigger, more developed sooner. Like, they're at an advantage at all those younger ages. Now you have a kid who's a late bloomer, kind of gets left behind.
That's interesting. And my younger son is a late bloomer. And that's kind of what I've always thought. But then I realized, like in sports like basketball and soccer, he's really had to rely on his skill. He cannot rely on his size and speed to be the best. And he's really developed his skills because of that. But he can do that in Galway.
Right. But I think that's a great part about sports, too. Like, if you're a littler guy, you're going to get forced to be scrappy, really hone in on your skills, be a better team player, hustle a little bit more.
Right. Whereas you see, the people that rely on their athleticism maybe aren't the best by the time they get to the upper age groups.
Yeah. Or it catches up with them when they get to college and everybody's that athletic.
Right.
And you go, oh, I'm not as good as I thought. And now you're not even playing. Like, you're the last guy off the bench because
maybe they didn't have to put in as much work.
Right.
That kind of
you
thing.
have all these like habits that you've had to build over the years. And maybe a smaller, scrappier guy built better work ethic, really figured out what they have to work on to be able to contribute during a game.
Like, I think of like just at the peak level, right? Like the professional level, how many guys are like the top of Division I, football, baseball, whatever. Then they get to the professional level and now like they can barely even sniff the field.
Right.
And you're like, wait. And even them at times probably are like, what's going on? Like, I've always been the top dog, and now all of a sudden I'm not, and I can't even get on the field. I'm the third-string quarterback or whatever it is. And now, and that's where, like, at a young age, like, learning the skills and little things, the intangibles, a lot of it, too, will help when especially if you're in, like, a smaller town where you can do that kind of stuff or have the right coaches in the area.
Well, and then the other point is that the whole specialization thing, I've started to realize that too with Simon, my younger son, because again, he played everything. He played baseball and ran and played soccer and basketball. And this year he decided not to play basketball, just to focus on running. We don't have an indoor track team, but he wants to focus on running so that he can, break school records in the spring. And
he's what year is he in school?
He's a junior.
There's time for that.
I
think that's an appropriate time.
Right. And I agree. And that's why I never, I want him to do what he's passionate about, and he's become passionate about running. It's been part of his life, and he realizes that he has a propensity for it as well. And it's been neat to see him succeed. But I also love to watching him play soccer and basketball and baseball too. So as a parent, it's bittersweet, but I want him to do what he feels he wants to do. And as a physical therapist, I like to see, using different muscle groups and training different, speed and agility, but we try and do that a little bit on the the cross training side for Simon.
Right. Yeah, it's important. What are common injuries that you see when you're at work working with like your athletic population?
Lately I've seen a lot of Achilles injuries, and I wonder if that's more because they're playing on turf, a little bit more. I don't know that. But
that's been a discussion with like the NFL, right? After Aaron Rodgers.
Right.
What's the rationale behind that? Do we know?
I don't know exactly what the rationale behind the Achilles. I know obviously with like the knees and everything, and there's something at least in the NFL specific to like MetLife's turf compared to other places.
It's like a different turf.
I think it's like because the injury rate amongst players on the Giants and Jets is higher, and amongst visiting players at MetLife than any other stadium.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that because. Like they were just talking about it the other day because another offensive lineman got hurt or defensive lineman at MetLife, and they're like, it's like X number of people that have gotten hurt this year just at MetLife. So it could be something with like their specific turf to switch it to grass, but yeah, I don't know. You might know a little bit more.
Yeah, no, I don't know.
Side of things. But.
Yeah, I don't know specifically, but it does seem like there are some more injuries related to turf, and maybe it's just the give or the drainage or who knows.
Right.
But a lot of knee injuries, a lot of ACLs among teenage girls. We see a lot of ACL kind of injuries, those kind of things. And then in the older population, a lot of joint replacements is what I'll work with.
Right. What grafts do you like post ACL? What have you seen tend to do better, if any? We see so many in here now.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that there's no difference really. It's a lot of it is about the rehab.
Well, yes, it's committing to your rehab and being
more than
consistent with
anything.
that.
I mean, I'm sure that certain grafts do better than others, but from what I've seen as a therapist, if they commit to the rehab, if they do the exercises, if they follow through regularly, consistency is the key with that, then everybody has had pretty good results.
For sure. Yeah, we trying to think, Paul, I guess we've seen a lot of ACLs in the past couple years. We see so many different sports. We see Tommy Johns in baseball. I guess if it's going to happen, we kind of see it come through our door at one point or the other.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, like, for us more commonly, we haven't seen as much TJ as we probably did when we first were in here, but that could be also just the clientele that we have.
Right.
But yeah, I'd say like the knee injuries are like the biggest ones we see in here.
Yeah.
Like as far as like big injuries that somebody might need surgery from or like that kind of stuff. Like,
yeah, I would agree.
Who's your baseball team in the pros?
I root for the Yankees.
The Yanks.
Yeah, we were talking prior to the air. I said if Soto gets traded to the Yankees, we will interrupt to announce it, even though it will be aired.
Is there any update?
I've been refreshing. No update.
There's no update.
No update.
I get the Twitter notifications from Jeff Passan, so nothing.
Do you like they just signed the Red Sox guy?
Yeah, I heard that last night.
Verdugo?
Do you like that move or no?
I do.
I like it.
I like Verdugo.
It reminds me of the Johnny Damon move.
Yeah, was Johnny Damon a trade or was that a free agency thing?
I don't know if it was a trade or free agent.
I think it was a free agency thing because I heard a stat on the radio today that they were saying the Yankees haven't had an actual trade with the Red Sox since the 1960s or something.
They've done 7 trades in the last half century. That's what it was.
Okay.
7 trades have been done between them in the last 50 years.
Okay.
I don't remember if the Damon one wasn't, but just like his energy.
Who else was Ellsbury a trade?
No.
No, Ellsbury was a
agent.
signing.
Yeah.
That was a bad signing.
Terrible signing. Awful. Babe Ruth was we bought him.
Yep.
But that wasn't within the last 50 years.
Right.
That was like 100 years ago.
You asked who my baseball team was, though, and in the summer of 2015, it was the Mets because as we finished our run across America, they welcomed us to Citi Field. They recognized us on the field.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, Curtis Granderson was playing at the time, who my sons really liked as a player, and he's such a nice guy.
He was great. He was on the Yanks for a little bit.
He was, yeah. Yep.
Hit bombs for the Yankees.
Yep. So, the Grandy man can. John Sterling's call.
Yeah.
John Sterling. He's getting up there, man.
Yeah, I wonder if he'll be back, because he's doing fewer and fewer games, it seems like.
Yeah, he's also losing his mind a little bit sometimes.
I think
I'm like
that's been a long time coming.
Listen to like Yankees radio sometimes, and I'm like, dude, how much did you two have to drink?
I feel like if I was doing sports broadcasting, like sitting there, especially baseball, when it's just so much like time in between things, I'd want to booze it up a little bit.
I grew up listening to the radio, so that's pretty much still how I consume the Yankees games is listen on the radio. Yep. As I'm falling asleep, I listen.
Yeah, I didn't never like listening to sports on the radio when I was like growing up because like I'm such a visual person. But now like I find myself on the way to work, I listen to ESPN radio in the morning. I also like some of the hosts that they have.
Yeah.
And then like at night, if I'm leaving here, like sometimes I'll just like last night there was or not last night, Monday night I think there was the Monday Night Football game, and I just listened to that on my way home. And like if this was 5 years ago, there's 0% chance of that ever happening.
I feel like baseball's a little easier to listen to just because of the pace. Right? Yeah. That's why I like baseball on the radio. But
baseball's definitely easier because of the pace. I just love football.
Yeah,
no matter what, any kind of football, doesn't matter what it is.
Yeah, man. When'd you write your book?
So I started it in 2017. So we ran across America in 2015. In 2017, we ran the length of the Mississippi River. We ran from northern Minnesota to Louisiana.
Shamus's idea again?
He actually came up with that idea before we ran across America. When we were in Louisiana one winter running the Louisiana Marathon, and we were walking along. It was in Baton Rouge, and we were walking along the Mississippi River in Louisiana, and Shamus looked up at Rooster, who was walking with us, and he said, hey, Mr. Rooster, how long is the Mississippi River? And so Rooster pulls out his phone and says, hey, Siri, how far, and whatever. And it said whatever it was, 1,600 and whatever. I don't know what it is, but whatever it was. And Shamus goes, "Oh, that's nothing. We're training to run 3,000 miles across America. We'll do that next." And we did. So in 2017, we did the same mission, ran the length of the Mississippi and donated chairs to kids with disabilities.
That's wild.
So anyway, after we finished that run, I started, people said, "Shaun, you got to write a book." So I started writing the book then in 2017, was still working full time and, trying to squeeze in writing when I could in the evenings or in early mornings or whatever. By 2019, it was done and going through edits and everything. And it was ready to be published. And then with the pandemic, everything got delayed. So it finally got published last year, 2022. So it was a long labor of love, but I think it came out great.
Super rewarding, probably. Yeah, there it is over there. How'd you even start the process of like, here's what I'm going to write about, here's how I'm going to break it down?
Yeah, I had an English professor in college that always challenged me to write. So I enjoyed writing. So I knew I kind of wanted to go about and just tell my story, tell my upbringing, and then bring it, through Shamus's life. And basically this book culminates with the Run Across America. I brought a copy for you guys today.
Thanks, Shaun.
So it culminates with the Run Across America, and now we actually want to write a sequel to it, but this time Shamus is going to help me write it, and maybe I think people will be more interested to hear things from his perspective.
Yeah,
and now that he's,
great.
On the cusp of being 18, we'll write one together as time allows, and that'll be the next book. But as far as the process, I just racked my memory and interviewed my parents and sisters and, tried to get, content for my youth, and then what I could remember about, youth and high school sports, I wrote about that, and then just took it all the way. Like I said, obviously Shamus being born and that whole experience for my wife and I was something that we'll never forget. And then all the things that he has taught us, the things that you can learn from your kids if you listen, are willing to listen. That's the greatest lesson I learned. And the title Better Together is all about, I had pursuits of running in the Olympic marathon trials. I never had delusions that I was going to make the Olympic team, but I was close to making the trials. And to me, that was a big goal. Shamus came up and set the goal, so much higher. As I reflect back, there's been thousands and thousands of people that have run the Olympic marathon trials over the years, since 1900 or whatever. But there's very few people that have run as a family, father pushing son across America. I think we're on a pretty short list as far as that's concerned.
I think that list is very small.
So, and I've realized that, running is a pretty solitary sport. It was so much more rewarding when Shamus and I could do it together, and hence the title Better Together. That's really how I feel about it. I haven't run a race without Shamus since 2013.
Wow. This episode of Off Exit 10 is brought to you by Drink Alchemy. Fatigue and brain fog affect us all, destroying everything we pursue. Whether as an athlete, artist, creator, or entrepreneur, our mind holds the key to performing optimally. By combining the most potent organic nootropics found in nature, Drink Alchemy delivers sustainable boost to creativity, memory, energy, and focus in one epic beverage. Stop pumping your body full of excessive amounts of caffeine and unknown proprietary blends from other energy drinks, and get clean energy from Drink Alchemy's natural nootropics like lion's mane, L-theanine, and caffeine from green tea. Used by Olympians, D1 athletes, MMA fighters, and entrepreneurs, Drink Alchemy has become a huge part of my daily routine, making sure I'm functioning optimally during long days of coaching athletes, running CDSF, and getting in quality workouts myself. So do yourself a favor and ditch the energy drinks loaded with caffeine, other stimulants, and who knows what else, and head over to drinkalchemy.com today. Live with your mind unbound and save 10% off your order by using code CDSF at checkout. That's drinkalchemy.com, promo code CDSF for 10% off your order today. And do you have more scheduled? Are you planning to do any more?
Yes, Shamus and I, for us to be able to run Boston together, Shamus has to be 18. So Shamus will be 18 for the next Boston Marathon. So Labor Day weekend this year, we set out to qualify for Boston as a duo. And we did that at the Sackett's Harbor Marathon in Sackett's Harbor, New York, on the eastern edge of Lake Ontario. They invited us up there to run. And we had a goal to break 3 hours and 20 minutes was what we needed to qualify. You have to qualify for Boston as a duo, you have to run the runner's qualifying time. So for me as a 45-year-old male is sub 3:20. And you have to do that with the partner that you're going to push in the race in the chair that you're going to push the race. Nobody else can help you push, that kind of thing. So they're pretty strict in their rules, and the rider has to be 18 years old. So in Sackett's Harbor this year, we ran 9 miles into the race. Our chair broke for the first time ever. I mean, I've pushed Shamus literally tens of thousands of miles, and we've never really had
Pushing across the country.
yeah.
And this was the qualifying.
This
for
was the
Boston.
qualifying race, and the chair snapped. The handlebars, the weld just broke. Shamus ended up carrying it around his neck for the rest of the race. I was pushing. Typically, I push up at my chest height. I was pushing down at like lower than waist height. I had to push him for the last 17 miles of the race, but together we still ran sub 3 hours. We ran 2 hours 59 minutes, and we qualified for Boston. Just got our acceptance, I think, 2 weeks ago.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome.
So
Congrats
our
on
next
that.
big race will be Boston.
Yeah, I didn't realize how big of a deal the Boston Marathon was until I lived out there. And
Oh,
it's
yeah.
like it's like Patriots Day is big.
Yeah.
Everybody gets off of work. It's like a
Yeah, it's a
holiday,
holiday.
that the state gives.
Yep.
Yeah, and people are just they're out, they're celebrating. Yeah, it's a big
And
day.
and I ran it 8 times as an individual, and enjoyed it for that reason, you know. But then as I was trying to chase faster and faster times, I kind of got away from Boston because it's a hard course. At least for me, it's a hard course to run a super fast time.
What makes it so hard?
It starts all downhill. For like the first half of the race is a net downhill, and then it finishes uphill. So by the time you get to the uphills, your legs are just toast from absorbing the impact of the downhills for 13 or 14 miles. And then by mile 17, you get to the Heartbreak Hill area, and your legs are just screaming for mercy. But that being said, it's got to be. I would say that it's probably the most live spectated event in the world. It's got to be close.
Has to be.
Because it's like wall-to-wall people start to finish almost. Mm-hmm. And, for 26 miles, they're just lined up, 3 or 4 deep on the road cheering you on. And I want Shamus to be able to experience that. So we're looking forward to that.
Yeah, because I worked in the suburbs. So all of our clientele on that day, like you wouldn't train people that day because they were all volunteering. They were all out there watching.
Yeah,
It's a big deal. Did you do it during the bombing year or no?
No, my last year I haven't run it since 2008, I guess. 2008 or 2009 was the last time I ran it. But I have a jacket from the bombing year because Shamus and I had the opportunity to meet the race director. He was doing a speaking engagement at the Louisiana Marathon when we were down there. He caught wind of us getting ready to run across America at that time, and he himself had run across America in 1978. So there was just kind of that bond there. So he brought us a couple jackets and a couple shirts from that year, the Boston Strong year. Mm-hmm. So I have the jacket, but I didn't run it that year.
Well, that lasted for a little bit.
Yeah, pretty good. Almost an hour. An hour.
We did well. We did well.
Our sign just went down. We had an audible where our sign went up. Yeah, that year was crazy. That was my first year living in Boston. I moved out there in January of that year. And then, that was wild. Just that day, the lockdowns after that day, the manhunt after those days. Yeah, it was just like...
I remember watching it all on TV because I was training for my first ultra marathon that year. So I was running on the treadmill as the marathon was going. I was watching it on TV as I was running on the treadmill that day, and I remember it all unfolding. And I remember people calling and texting me like crazy because they knew that I had run and typically had run the Boston Marathon in the past. It was scary.
Yeah, scary. My wife was watching it, not by the finish line, but I didn't know where she was when I hit. I was working outside of the city. But yeah, that was a wild day. It was wild in Boston, and then a few months after was the Aaron Hernandez thing, I think.
Yeah.
And I was like, what's going on out here?
Crazy.
Do I need to go back home? I need to get back to New York.
So it's interesting. Another marathon that Shamus and I run every year or have is the Marine Corps Marathon. And you think about, security and safety down there, but every water station is manned by Marines in uniform. And it's just a wild, wild event because there's so many, military personnel everywhere on the course. But you never know. These big, huge events like the New York City Marathon, Chicago Marathon, there's a lot of people. It's scary.
Yeah, it's scary nowadays that that's something that you have to think about. It's kids in schools and big events. It's like, that could be the worst change in our country in the past however many years. It's like just too many of these things every year that you see.
No doubt.
Yeah, man, it's bad. So your book, you write it all, and then you have an editor that you send to?
Yeah, we were self-published, so we did it all through Mascot Publishing, and I just worked with it. I wrote it all myself, and she just gave me some feedback. And honestly, the biggest thing that we had to do was just cut stuff. Probably it was 350, 400 pages when I first wrote it. I think it's just under 300 now, and it's a good length. It's an easy read. The chapters are about 5 or 6 pages, so you read a little bit here and there, and each chapter kind of stands alone, tells a story, and sets you up for the next chapter. That's what I like about it, and that's kind of what I went for when I was writing it, not knowing what I was doing. I'm not an English major, but I did my best. I had a story to tell. Shamus had a story to tell, and I felt it was a story worth sharing.
Yeah. Jordy, is that something you've had to learn? Is like be able to say what you want in less words?
Yeah. I would say that's probably, for me, if you're writing a fantasy book or something, you want to be kind of verbose. People like that. But for me, brevity's king.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's, in general, a lot of people struggle with getting more out of saying less.
Or what about even when you're working with a client in PT, or we're working with somebody in here? It's like you want to get the most out of the least amount of cues, the least amount of words.
Right.
I want to be able to say one word and you get it, but that doesn't always happen.
Right. Yeah. No doubt. And as a coach too, it's the same thing. What's the player or the team going to understand with as few instructions as possible?
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, that's it's like the overcoaching, the overcomplicated. It's like as a young coach or PT, it's like a natural evolution you're going to go through. Like you learn all this stuff and you want to explain it to everybody, and then you realize like either they don't care, or it's too complex, or you're confusing them. And I feel like you kind of develop your craft over the years of simplifying things and being better at communicating.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Yeah, that's huge.
I feel like in New York, I definitely ran into more clients that just were like, dude, I don't care. I'm just here to work out. And I'm like, okay, let's do it. Like, we're just going to work out.
Yeah, dude, that's a real thing. How'd you get into working with pediatrics?
That was something that I knew that I wanted to do while I was in college. So, like through my internships and
where'd you go to college?
Experiences. I went to a small school in southern New Hampshire. Notre Dame College was the name of the school. Like I was telling Paul earlier, they closed the year that I graduated.
Oh, that's what you guys were talking about, St. Rose.
That's the similarity there. Kind of everybody going through that at St. Rose right now. My wife had to go through it. I was getting my master's degree the year they closed, but my wife was an undergrad. So that
has to be tough for the St. Rose kids. I mean, they got to all do a transfer by next semester.
We were just talking too when we were off air, saying that like Russell Sage said that they'll take on any St. Rose kids to make the transition easier, that kind of stuff, as far as like the transfers go. So yeah, I mean, I think that'll help, but it's still like there's a lot that goes into that. A lot of kids, a lot of staff.
Yeah, faculty.
I wonder if over the years, like private institutions who are kind of hanging on financially, you're going to see more closures over the year with just like the increase in costs of college.
I think there's 3 or 4 schools from the league that I played in college that have closed. Green Mountain College, Castleton State, I think closed. Our school were 3, within a decade that all closed.
Yeah, I mean, I think like you were saying with the private schools, especially like the small private schools that aren't, getting this
the big
crazy
endowments
money
or whatever.
from,
yeah, we were looking. Was it me and Dan or me and you looking up Ivy League endowments the other day? Like wild. Like look up like Princeton or Harvard's endowments. Insane amounts of money. So yeah, if it's like a smaller private institution, yeah, it's tough just because of the cost, and you got to fill the beds.
Yeah, and if you're a small private institution that's not like a Division I that's getting money from your sports that are like creating income from like March Madness or NCAA football or whatever, like you're not, like you're not going to get that money that
look it up. Look up like Princeton or Harvard's endowments.
Endowment. Here we go. Harvard University.
Yeah, it's $1 billion.
50 bill.
Jay, how much?
50 billion.
50 bill in the bank. Yeah.
You can't even fathom that kind of money.
No.
The university's
they could spare a little for St. Rose.
Their annual operating expenses in 2023 fiscal year were $5.9 billion.
And they got 50 bill. That's a lot of bill for them.
$712 million granted in financial aid and scholarships in 2023. $50.7 billion in endowment for the 2023 fiscal year.
Yeah, when you have wealthy alum, you know.
Yeah, then you get all those donations. So getting into peds, that's what you
do in college? So going to school in southern New Hampshire, we had a close proximity to Boston. So I spent a lot of time at Boston Children's Hospital, and I just really liked working with the kids. I felt like I was good at it. They responded well to me, and I liked being able to see the progress in kids, you could really see some amazing changes and development, and I really loved that aspect of it. So that's why I got into it.
I feel like it's got to be rewarding too when you see a kid and it clicks with them.
Yeah,
and you just see it in their eyes and their face, and you're like, yeah, that's what I want right there. And
yeah, the number of kids that I've helped, learn how to walk or accomplish the littlest goals for some kids, and help them to get equipment that they need so that they can be more independent or whatever. I really enjoy that.
Yeah, that's super, super rewarding. Yeah, and you're not dealing with like everything has its rewards and benefits, but okay, so you start to deal with teenagers and adults. It's like now, it's just like now I'm part exercise, part teaching biomechanics, and then like half psychology.
Yeah,
right.
It's like you just are dealing with that now, which is part of the gig, and it's what makes somebody a good coach when you can relate to somebody and connect with them and figure out where there's at. But yeah, it just makes the job a little bit more.
Yeah, and I mean, going off of that too, with it being rewarding, seeing a kid click. Like obviously working with the top level athletes that we get in here is fun and exciting, but it's oftentimes like not challenging because I just show them it and they do it better than me, and I'm like, all right,
yeah, you're
I'm good. I don't need to like coach you much. I just got to make sure you're positioned right. Whereas if I get like that 7th grade girl or boy that's like a baby deer and has no idea how their body moves,
still finding their body, yeah.
Right.
And then 6 months down the line, I'm watching them deadlift 135 pounds, and I'm like, yeah, that's awesome. Like seeing that progress is like, I mean, it might not be 6 months, it might be longer than that, but like, relative, it's just like, that's super rewarding to see the kids that just don't move as well, and then all of a sudden you see them moving, and they're moving just as good as like anybody else.
Yeah, they figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, working with like elite, I feel like when you're in college,
that's what you want to do.
That's what everybody wants to do, and it's cool. But yeah, the most rewarding is definitely the younger kid who you're getting them to enjoy working out, to build confidence, or the adult who's fearful of the gym and now they're enjoying it and in a good routine. Those are the most rewarding things.
Yeah, my most rewarding client, like in New York, is the one that I've told you that like never worked out before, had no desire to work out, got him to work out, and now he's a trainer.
Yeah, I mean, overcoming, that's what it's all about.
He's a personal trainer now, and he helps people, and he loves it, and it's like, dude, I couldn't ask for more.
Yeah. How strategic are you with your training now when you train in terms of periodizing things?
Oh, I mean, I would say not as much anymore. Though I try now. I've been following Simon's running schedule. He's been working with a coach, my younger son. He's been working with a coach out of Liberty University, just kind of an online thing. He sets him up with his workouts and tweaks them here and there, helps him to peak for sectionals and state qualifiers and states and things like that for his running events. So I've been kind of following Simon's schedule just because I try to run with him as much as anything. So that's the periodization I get. When I was really training to try and get myself faster, I spent a long time building up a big base of endurance miles, and then tried to tweak the speed and the workouts from there. That's how I would kind of manage it. At this point, I just try to keep running fun for myself, for Shamus, and for Simon, and the three of us will run together sometimes. That's what it's all about for me now. And I throw in, some weightlifting, some cross training, even yoga, all kinds of stuff just to try and keep myself fit as a middle-aged man at this point.
Yeah, we all hit that point where it's like, I just am so competitive and I just want to do the most of everything, be the most jacked, look this way, be the best. And then all of us are down the same road to just like, I want to feel good. I want to do what I want to do. I want to be okay with how I look. And that's that.
Yeah.
I'll just do whatever the minimum is to not get myself hurt and be able to have all those things.
And don't get me wrong, I still have, goals. Shamus's other goal is there's something called the World Marathon Challenge where you run 7 marathons on 7 continents in 7 days.
Oh, bro.
I feel like
So Shamus said that'd be cool
this.
if we could be the first duo to do something like that. But the registration fee for the event is like $40,000 per person, so we'd have to multiply that times 2. And it's like 64 hours of flying in 7 days.
What's he want to go to school for again?
Aerospace engineering.
Yeah, let him do that. Make a little bit of money there, and then he can.
If Dad can still run,
as long as Dad can still run. Otherwise, we just substitute Simon in.
That's right.
That's a cool event.
It is cool, yeah. So you fly to. I mean, everything is included once you get there, but the price tag is
huge.
prohibitive. So you fly to South Africa, and and you wait there until the weather in Antarctica is right for running. So it might be a couple days, it might be a week. And then they fly you into Antarctica, you run your first marathon on the continent. And then they fly you back to South Africa, you run there, then to Australia, and you run there, and then so forth until it ends in Miami, I think, is the last one. And it takes place in February.
Of course, on South Beach.
Of course, it's going to end you in Miami. Like, hey, guys, you just like died for like 7 days. Now you guys can go live it up. Good luck.
That's right.
You have nothing in your system at all.
So we'll see. We've presented that idea to ASICS because Shamus and I started getting sponsored by ASICS.
I saw that. So what do you do with them? That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So they brought us on as ASICS ambassadors the beginning of this year, and they renewed our contract for another year. Basically, we just show up to events that they want us to. Like they're inviting us down to the U.S. Marathon Trials in February in Orlando, so we'll go down there for photo shoots and stuff like that. They send us gear, we wear it, we show up to wherever they want us.
They make good sneaks.
Yeah. Actually, ASICS are what I wore primarily as we ran across America. So I've been familiar with ASICS for a long time, and I've loved the products. And they send us a lot of great gear, and we do our best to represent. And
yeah, that's cool to get rewarded with things like that, though. Just kind of people, notice and appreciate what you're doing.
And so we pitched the idea to them about this World Marathon Challenge, and they're like, let us get through they said, what's your time frame like? And first of all, just to not get an immediate no, we were like, oh yeah,
Okay.
that's a win.
All right, here we go. Foot's in the door.
Yeah, exactly. And I think they might be willing to support us in at least a portion of the financial piece eventually. They're like, let us get through the Olympic year next year, and we'll talk about it after that. And I said, if it's when Shamus graduates college, maybe that is more likely. I'll still be, 50. Maybe I can still do it. We'll see.
Where are the Olympics? Isn't it in the U.S.?
This year is Paris.
No,
Paris.
the 2028?
2020. Yeah, the next one is going to be
LA?
LA. Yeah, yep.
Is that the first one since '96?
For summer, we had Salt Lake in the winter.
Yeah, Salt
It's
Lake
the first
in,
summer though since
Yeah,
'96,
I
right?
think it might be.
Yep. Good old '96 Olympics. That's the bombing year.
When's the
Yeah, my sister was volunteering that year. She was in college
shit.
at the time, and she went down to Atlanta and or I guess she was actually working. She worked there all summer, in the.
I had a client and they were down at the Olympic Games that year. She's in her 70s, so she was an adult at that time. She was down there for the games and when it happened.
Yeah.
She said it was scary time.
When's the flag football going to the Olympics in next
28, I think.
28.
They were talking about it when it's in LA.
Yeah, it is 28 because you got all the guys that were talking about doing it in the NFL and whatnot.
Will they let them?
I don't see why not.
Yeah, I guess it's
I
good.
mean,
We're gonna
good
win.
PR.
We're gonna win every single year, probably for the first 30 years that it's a sport.
Yeah, how many foreign guys even play in the NFL? I mean,
I don't know. I like the idea though because I feel like it's gonna. Because you got on the Eagles, they have the one offensive lineman who's from Australia,
Right.
Rugby player, and it was funny because they asked him what's harder, rugby or football, and he's like, as a lineman, football. Any other position, rugby. He's like, football is just a full. Lineman is literally a full blown car crash every single play, no matter what. And he's like, if I have any rugby friends out there that want to challenge it, I'll pad you up and let me hit you as hard as I can. And then I'm going to do it again. And again. And again. For
3 hours.
3 hours. And he's like, then tell me what's harder. But yeah, I think it's cool because it's going to get football. I'm a big football fan, so I feel like it's going to globalize it a little bit more, which will be cool. And then you got baseball's in there too. Lacrosse.
Oh, lacrosse. That's cool. Lacrosse is big. That's gotten way more popular.
Lacrosse
I feel like,
is in there. There was. I think there was six.
Yeah, they're bringing some new.
6 new sports or whatever that are going into it. So that'll be cool.
Yeah, that's sweet. Yeah, Shaun, I appreciate you coming on and doing this, man.
Oh, my pleasure. It's great to visit with you guys.
Dude, it's a
Yeah,
blast.
this is a
Yeah,
blast,
it's great
man.
to meet you and hear your story and talk a little sports and learn about you and Shamus, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, anytime.
So, anything you want to plug, Ainsley's Angels, anything else before we hop off?
just for people to keep up with what we're doing, you can follow us on Instagram at Power to Push, Power the number 2 push, or Ainsley's_Angels are the big social media things. Our book is available on the Ainsley's Angels website. It's unavailable at Amazon. It's called Better Together by Shaun Evans. Reach out.
Awesome.
Perfect. Yeah, Shaun Evans, we appreciate you coming on. This is, do we confirm the One Chip Challenge or the hot podcast guy's name is Shaun Evans too?
It's definitely Shaun Evans.
It's Shaun.
It's Shaun Evans, confirmed. Well, yeah, let's Appreciate you coming on, Shaun. Be careful with the one chip challenge
it's
out
Shaun, S-E-A-N.
Oh, different spelling.
there. Okay,
Different
different, not the same guy.
So it's Sean Evans and Shaun Evans.
Boom, Shaun. Hey, we appreciate you, Shaun, and we'll catch everybody next time. Thank you. Boom.